Ladies and gentlemen, I got to give Texas another huge L. I don't know why my state that I live in has to keep taking these L's because we keep producing. And I say we, because I know I get on to some of y'all other states and I know people get mad. But my state of Texas produces some of the dumbest stories possible with regard to like how do we even get here. But I'm going to give you guys the details. Let me go ahead and give you guys the fair warning and the disclaimer that some of you guys might find my content offensive and controversial. The information is coming from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, and news websites, and interviews. So we're going to have a couple interviews here also. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this as your cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like this going forward. Viewer discretion is advised, and that is your official disclaimer. So Texas, anybody from Texas, we all need to step up and we need to accept this L. This individual, who they claim is 43 years old, let me get this information from lawandcrime.com. So let me give them a shout out. So thank you for the article. Let me start this off by saying this man looks like Santa Claus if he was sucking on a meth pipe. This man does not look like he's 43 years old. This man looks like life has literally tossed him off the side of a cliff and just left him in somebody's storage shed, which is what he did to his baby. 43 years old. His name is Clifford Jason Guynes, I guess. Guynes. If I said that wrong, whatever, man. In Texas, was arrested for allegedly abandoning, it was on video. He abandoned his injured 9-month-old baby. They caught this on videotape, even though they want to say allegedly, but I get that because they got to be technical here. This little girl also had a broken leg, and you'd have to wonder, how does a 9-month-old baby get a broken leg? Matter of fact, one would also have to ask, let me back this up like a U-Haul truck, and you'd have to ask, with a face like this, Clifford, how did you get access to a child? How did you get access to sex, sir? Looking like that. I just don't understand. Is there a shortage of penis out there, ladies? Where's the biological mother? That man, some people just, when they say you can't judge a book by its cover, I say BS. You can judge a book by its cover. This man looks like he should never be around children or living things at all. Okay? This baby at 9 months old had a broken leg, and he abandoned his child in a stranger's shed, and he also had a stolen truck. Just every bit of this doesn't make any sense at all. Authorities thought the Lone Star State man was already in jail. Let me say that again. They thought he was already in jail, but we'll get to that here in a moment. Clifford Jason Guynes was arrested this week and charged with 1 count each of felony injury to a child causing serious bodily harm, felony abandoning / endangering a child, and felony theft, authorities confirmed to lawandcrime.com. Now, according to a press release from the Livingston Police Department, officers at approximately 3:30 a.m. on Saturday received a 911 call from a Union Pacific Railroad regarding a train in Livingston that may have struck an individual laying parallel to the track. That sounds wild in itself. Upon arriving at the scene, first responders say they spoke to the train engineer, who provided a physical description of the individual as being a white male of medium build and a light-colored shirt. Police and firefighters say they immediately began to search the area where the man was struck. Authorities reported spending several hours walking the entire length of the train, searching the area on foot and using a drone, but the man was never located. However, searchers did recover a pair of pants, boots, and a cell phone from the area where the man was allegedly struck. Now, approximately 7 a.m., authorities declared the search over and the train continued to its destination. Livingston PD at approximately 7:30 a.m. responded to a call from a home located on Youngs Lane, located about an hour north of Houston, regarding a vehicle being stolen by a white male who was wearing only a light-colored shirt and underwear. Now, just so you guys know, that Houston in general is very known for stolen vehicles. It is a hot spot for stolen vehicles. I think that the world's expert in how to steal a vehicle probably reside in Houston, because I hear about that happen all the time. This man, they said, was only wearing a light-colored shirt and underwear. Yes, it gets weird, but it's going to get even weirder. The home was adjacent to the railroad tracks where the man was reportedly struck and the personal items were recovered. So I'm going to assume that was probably his stuff and his pants. Why did he have his pants off with his daughter? If that was even him. But let's keep going. After conducting an investigation, the victim's vehicle was entered as stolen, and the suspect could be the individual that was struck by the train earlier, police wrote in a release. Several hours later, at approximately 9:30 a.m., another call came into the Livingston Police Department from a resident located on Youngs Lane. The caller told the emergency dispatcher that they had just found a small infant in the shed behind their home. Officers and emergency medical services EMS personnel immediately responded to the home. Upon arriving at the scene, authorities found a small female child, approximately 7 to 8 months old, with visible bodily injuries, which is that angel that you see right there being comforted by the people who own that home and live on that property. Beautiful little baby. Investigators processed the scene and collected biological evidence while the infant was transported to a local hospital for treatment. The child was later transferred to Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. As investigators were processing the scene, the San, oh goodness, I can't say this. I know it's not Jacinto. The San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office, I know I probably said that wrong, contacted Livingston PD and notified the department that the stolen vehicle had been located and recovered in Cold Spring, Texas. The driver, identified as Clifford Jason Gaines of Splendora, was being detained. Okay, I can read this part. The San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office stated that Gaines had physical bodily injuries and stated that he had been struck by a train. The Sheriff's Office summoned EMS to their scene, and Gaines was later transported by ambulance to CHI St. Luke's Health Hospital in Livingston, the release states. During the investigation, I noticed a lot of information, y'all. During the investigation, Gaines said that he had left his daughter in a shed but could not remember where. It is unclear at this time how Gaines' daughter received her injuries, but Gaines' injuries were not life-threatening and stated he was struck by the train. Authorities say they later recovered a green Chevrolet truck from an extremely wooded area near the location where Gaines was struck by the train. I actually think I have a screenshot of that truck. Yeah, I do. Here it is. So let me see if I can add that picture back in here just because. There it is. And let me refresh that. So that truck should come up here in just a second. Let me see if I can find it. That was one right there. That one. So that's a green Chevrolet truck from an extremely wooded area near the location where Gaines was struck by the train. The vehicle was registered to Gaines, who had not mentioned it to the investigators. The truck was impounded and searched for evidence. Police said that the baby underwent surgery to have a femur pinned, but is now doing fine. The femur bone in a child's body, even at this age, is a very thick bone. What type of impact would that have had to have occurred to cause a break like that in a baby's leg? Gaines is being held in the Polk County Jail on a $200,000 bond. According to a report from the Montgomery County Police Reporter, Gaines on September the 16th was arrested on a blue warrant issued by the State Board of Pardons and Parole. He was booked into the Montgomery jail. It is unclear why he was released. Let me say that again. He had a blue warrant that was issued by the State of Board and Pardons and Parole. Hashtag, when you date thugs, you date death. I asked where the biological mother was because I'm wondering whether it was a biological mother or some other caretaker. Why would you leave this man with this child at all? Why would he have access to this child? And if you know that he has a criminal history, which clearly he does, if he's on parole, why does he have access to this child at all when he can't even prove to take care of himself? Just putting our children in the absolute dumbest situations. Let me give you guys the fair usage. Got a couple of news videos. Here we go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. The wildest thing here is they don't know why he was released. They don't know how he got his daughter, how he ended up where he was, why the daughter has a broke leg, where the biological mother was. There's just a lot of we don't knows here, and that is just a recipe for a disaster for this baby.
To a developing story we're tracking today, a 9-month-old found abandoned and hurt in a shed in Livingston.
A man is now facing charges in connection to this case. That baby was found off of Youngs Lane and Eddie Martin Drive and was later flown to the Texas Medical Center for treatment. That is where KPRC2's Brittany Jeffers joins us now live with an update. Brittany.
Yeah, Lisa and Owen, when EMS found the child, they discovered that the baby had a broken leg, so it was life flighted to Texas Children's Hospital. We are told that the baby did need surgery. Now, we are told this whole incident happened in the Livingston area over the weekend, and a woman by the name of Catherine McLean says it was 6 a.m. on Saturday when she was awakened by the sound of a loud truck outside of her home, and she believed her neighbor's truck had been stolen. She says they checked the family's surveillance video, which then captured a partially naked man checking vehicles in the neighborhood. She says it was shortly thereafter when their family dog started barking at something inside of their shed. She says when her husband went to check it out, they made a startling discovery that a baby girl had been abandoned inside.
I went out there, called 911, and I was freaking out. And then I looked at this little baby just looking up at me, you know, and then they gave me permission to pick her up, and it was a little girl, and I just wrapped her in a towel and ended up just taking her up and just holding her and just making sure she was okay and safe.
And when I opened the door up, there was a baby laying there on its belly right there. We had a little motorcycle, and it was laying between it and a file cabinet over on the side of the ground, right there on the floor of the shed.
So investigators say they arrested 43-year-old Clifford Gaines, and court records show that he was charged with abandoning or endangering a child. He's currently booked in the Polk County Jail on $200,000 bond. Now, thankfully, officials say that the little girl is going to be okay. Reporting live from the Med Center.
With this developing story, tracking from Livingston, a man is accused of leaving a baby in a shed.
This morning, he's in custody, and that 9-month-old baby is in the hospital. Our Brittany Jeffers is live from the Texas Med Center where that baby was flown for treatment. Brittany, what's the latest here?
Yes, and we're told that when EMS found
And I almost forgot to ask if y'all would do me a favor while y'all are watching the story. We want to have at least one thumb up for every person that's watching. So if y'all would help us click that thumbs up, it'll help share this video. And more people can see it, more people can share in these stories and come find our video, okay? So if y'all would, please make sure y'all hit that thumbs up. Show some love, okay? Thank you.
This child, they discovered that this little girl had a broken leg, and so that's why she was life-flighted here to Texas Children's Hospital. She did have to have surgeries, but officials say she is expected to be okay. Now, as you mentioned, this whole incident happened in Livingston over the weekend, and a woman by the name of Catherine McLean says it was about 6 a.m. on Saturday when she was awakened by the sound of a loud truck outside of her home. They believe that their neighbor's truck had been stolen, and the family surveillance video captured a partially naked man checking vehicles in the neighborhood. Well, she says it was shortly thereafter that their family dog started barking at something in the shed. And when her husband went to go check it out, they made a startling discovery.
He opened the door and yelled for me to call 911 because there was a baby in there. And I was like, hold on a minute. And he yelled again, call 911, there's an infant in here. So then we ended up going, I went out there, called 911, and I was freaking out. And then I looked at this little baby just looking up at me, you know. And then so they gave me permission to pick her up, and it was a little girl. And I just wrapped her in a towel and ended up just taking her up and just holding her and just making sure she was okay.
And first at 5, an infant with a broken leg found abandoned in a shed. And tonight, we're hearing from the homeowner who found that baby girl.
This is just such a heartbreaking story. Fox 26's Gabby Hart joining us live from Livingston, where this all unfolded. Gabby, a lot of moving parts to the story.
You guys, this is really one of those stories that you hear it and it makes you go, what? That really happened? Well, investigators say that this father crashed near some railroad tracks. Before he took off, he allegedly left a pair of pants and boots on the tracks, making the conductor think that they'd actually hit a person. So while that investigation was going on, police say that father then ran to a nearby shed, hid out before stealing a truck and abandoning his baby.
Oh, I was like home, you know.
John McClain lives near Marsh Drive in Livingston, Texas, a usually quiet small-town neighborhood. He was never expecting his weekend to pan out the way it did.
I was like, call 911, you know, there's a baby here. And she's like, a baby what?
Around 6:30 Saturday morning, he heard a loud truck speeding and turning around near his driveway. He learned his neighbor's truck had been stolen, so he reviewed his home security cameras.
Looked at the footage. He done went to all of our vehicles and pulled the door handles and checked to see if he could get in one of them before he going down there. Yeah. So we just thought it was a vehicle theft. But the guy on video was, you know, in underwear and socks.
Police came and took a report for the stolen truck. They revealed the suspect had crashed another truck near the railroad tracks not far from John's home. And around 9:30 that morning, hours after the suspect took off, John learned that this was a lot more than a simple auto theft.
When I let the dog out, the dog come right here and was sitting here barking. But then he started barking right towards the shed like, hey, there's something here.
John's 1-year-old schnauzer, Archie, had just alerted the family to a 7 to 8 month old girl abandoned in their shed.
And I heard that infant cry.
I want to back that up just for a second. I want y'all to see this. This is the moment that really caught my attention. Of all the pictures and all of this video, this is the moment that caught my attention. And I want y'all to look at how comfortable that baby is. How neglected has this child been that she could be that comfortable with a stranger? Maybe she was tired. Maybe she just appreciated somebody cared. But she just looks like just so comforted. Keep in mind, that's even with a broken leg, she has to be in pain. She's a cutie. She is a cutie. And I'm going to tell you something. Here's the wild thing about it. That if these people decided to get custody of this child, and these people don't know this child from Sarah Ann, from any other place, they'd probably be better suited as parents to this little girl that they have no ties to at all. Isn't that something? That's a beautiful thing, and that's a motherly instinct thing. Just look at how she holds her. She just looks concerned, and she's just like, how? Why? man, if I were in a position, shoot, people are just trying to do the best that they can in a lot of situations. But I'd love to take the baby in, just like, hey, I'll be your dad. You know what I'm saying? It just sucks to see how little people care. But that's by far one of the most beautiful pictures I've seen in a while. But let's keep going.
Their shed.
And I heard that infant cry. So I slid the door open and there was a baby laying in there by that little motorcycle we got on the floor with his belly just looking up at me.
That baby suffered a broken leg and injured femur bone, believed to be from the initial crash. John went further back on his home surveillance camera and learned that the suspect actually went into his shed and stayed for about 3 hours before he stole the neighbor's truck, meaning the baby had been in that shed for 6 hours.
We wrapped her in a towel, took her up to the porch right there, and she just sort of showed comfort and smiled, and we didn't know she was injured or what. She just fell asleep.
And our police did eventually arrest that child's father. He is charged with endangering a child, among other charges. We're also told that officers found meth on him at the time of his arrest. As far as that baby goes, that baby is recovering at the hospital and expected to be okay. CPS is also investigating. I'm live in Livingston. Gabby Hart, Fox 26 News.
I think I have a little bit of the extended interview. If you guys want to watch this, I'll play it. But we'll take a vote. I'll play just like a few seconds of it. If you guys want to see it, this is about 10 minutes long, so it's kind of long.
Well, yesterday morning, we had woke up about 6:30 and then heard some noise, like a loud vehicle, and I thought it was my son, and it wasn't my son. It was a neighbor's truck, was stolen. Anyways, we just heard a really loud noise, and my daughter opened the door and seen this big old puff of cloud of dust. Seen this truck just speeding down. It was the neighbor's truck. So anyways, and then a little while later, we went down there and they called the police, and they showed up, and Law came out there, and he ended up taking a report of the lost vehicle, and so we went home. About a couple hours later, my dog Archie, he just was sniffing around and just barking. And John was like, what is going on here? And so then he went out to the shed and opened the door, because that's where the dog was at. And then he opened the door and yelled for me to call 911 because there was a baby in there. And I was like, hold on a minute. And he yelled again, call 911, there's an infant in here. So then we ended up going, I went out there, called 911, and I was freaking out. And then I looked at this little baby just looking up at me, and then so they gave me permission to pick her up, and it was a little girl, and I just wrapped her in a towel and ended up just taking her up and just holding her and just making sure she was okay and safe. And it was just a pretty traumatic experience, and poor little baby was just went right to sleep in my arms. And then we called them, and the ambulance got there, and they showed up and picked the baby up and put her in there, and they took her and life-flighted her to Houston. And that's about all we know right now. And
the baby said to have broken leg.
Yeah.
How was the baby? Did it act like the baby was in pain at all, or just?
No, she was exhausted. She was just laid her head on my chest and went right to sleep. She just laid her head down. She was tired.
All this time seeing this baby there, and then what's going on? What was running through your mind?
All kinds of things. I don't know how people can just, leave their, I don't know, just all kinds of emotions. Like, I'm a mom, and just how can someone just leave a baby right there and just run and abandon it and just leave it? And it was just pretty traumatic. But yeah, all kinds of things running through my head. What happened to her? Did something bad happen to her? Just a little bit of everything, and if it was a kidnapper, if it was who the guy was that took her and put her there, just all kinds of things running through my head.
How she got in your shed?
That, I guess, we looked on the surveillance tape, and she was in there. I mean, the guy had carried her in there. We got it on the vent where he was opening the gate and put her in there. It was just horrible. So I can't even explain my feelings. Just can't explain.
What do you?
Yeah, John. Okay, now tell me, dog was barking, and you went out.
Usually the dog gets stirred up a little bit and barks towards the front gate. And this time the dog happened to be barking back between the shed, and I thought, well, maybe somebody else is back there behind the gate or coming off the railroad tracks or something. And when it was barking, I turned around and said, well, I better go check it. I went outside and the dog was barking, and when I got down by the shed, he was barking towards the shed. And I was like, well, that's different. I wonder what's right there. And I was looking down up under the shed a little bit. About that time I heard a cry, and that's when I opened the door. And when I opened the door up, there was a baby laying there on its belly right there. We had a little motorcycle, and it was laying between it and a file cabinet over on the side of the ground, right there on the floor of the shed. And I turned around and told my wife to call 911. There was a baby in there, and she was like, are you, what are you talking about? She thought I meant something else. I said, it's an infant, call 911. So whenever she called 911, we wouldn't touch her until, you know, we got permission from them to be able to move the baby, pick the baby up and comfort her. And that's whenever she carried her back up to the house, wrapped her with a towel, and she just fell asleep in her arms.
What did you think when you first saw the child?
When I opened it up, it was just like, what was that moving? And then, you know, I seen her right behind the motorcycle. It was a little hard. When I seen her, I was like, oh my God, that's a little baby laying there. This guy, you know, which we had already seen him on surveillance, you know, so we knew he had been there. And it was like, did this guy kidnap this baby and just throw her in my shed, or what's wrong with the baby? Because she was just laying down there looking up. She wasn't crying or acting like she was hurt or anything at the time. Did you see him come in
the gate on the security video or not when he came in?
Well, not right away. Whenever we heard that truck, what alerted me to all of it is, I said, man, that looked like my neighbor's truck in the video right there. And when I had backed the camera up to see the truck on video, I seen somebody walk by the gate that left our vehicle. So I backed it up a little further, and I watched this guy go through all of our vehicles trying to get in them. So he'd went to like my company truck, my son's truck, and I had another older work truck over there. He'd went through like 4 vehicles trying to get one before he went over and got his. And so, you know, we pretty much had knew this guy was there, but nothing ever alerted us till we got the police there to do the first report, and then they made mention of a possible guy getting hit by the train. So all that just sort of went with the theft of the truck, and figured it was over with. And it was about 3 hours later before I found the baby and all that, so it all started over again, you know.
So the police were out there once already?
Yes, they had already been there on the stolen vehicle. It was, you know, and we'd already looked at the footage there, and I didn't back up as far because he didn't go in till like 3:30 in the morning, and we were backing up to about 6:20 whenever you know, the truck was stolen. So we were backing up to about 6 in the morning. He was all around our vehicles to about 6:30 to 7, you know.
And when they found him, police alerted you that they had found him, and there was possibly a second child with it.
Yes, there was a little bit of some mention of could have been a second possible child. So we went through all the shed, went through all of our belongings around there, up in the boats and back of the trucks, and we was searching and just making sure that there wasn't any that he was making mention of a second child versus just the first child that he brought in there and dropped off.
Now, how far was his truck?
His truck
crashed out at.
I would probably say, you know, it could be straight away through there, half mile to a mile, probably a little more, half mile, 3/4.
Kind of close to the tracks, and the tracks are basically right over the hill, right behind your house.
Yes, they're behind my house, but he was still on. There's no road from our subdivision that he has to come around through town, over there where he was at, and then walk down the railroad tracks over a trestle over the creek, and get down there to our house. So it was a little walk on rocks and gravel. And
probably barefoot at the time too.
Yes, he was actually on video, you know, with just in his underwear and socks. So I mean, I'm sure it was a rough walk through there.
Now your son said there was also some blood on his truck.
Yes.
Getting in?
Well, at first, you know, when they made mention about the guy getting hit by a train, and they had them deputies and stuff looking for somebody out there early that morning. That's whenever we took them down there and showed them where they had leaned against his truck, had a little blood specks and stuff where he was leaning against it. So they took a little sample then, but that was before the baby. So they just thought he was cut, didn't know anything else.
Now, once the baby was found, there was a little bit of blood there too. Was that from the child, or was it?
No, that was from him, actually, where he either sat right there with the baby or leaned over to set her down or whatever. He was right there. He had leaned against like an old file cabinet and left some a big spot of blood, not big, but enough that they pulled the DNA or pulled a blood sample.
Baby still had a diaper on at the time when you found him?
No.
Didn't have a diaper on?
No, just a dress.
So no blood on the, was a dress on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, think of now after all this, it's hard to believe almost.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, what has happened here, you know? We never really have that much happen around there. We've been there 28 years, and it's always been pretty quiet with things, nothing ever messed with, and it's like all of a sudden we're starting to get some trouble around here. This guy's trying to steal a vehicle or two, you know, right at first, and then all of a sudden now we're finding out, hey, here somebody had a baby, and with everything that's going on nowadays, it's like, oh man, did somebody kidnap somebody's child and, you know, abduct it and try to sell or injure it and just drop it off on us? Or
what was the police's reaction when they first got there?
Oh, they just didn't know what the heck neither. I mean, they were sitting there going, you know, I guess trying to figure out what all they needed to start going with and report. And the first thing, like I say, it's a good thing we reported the truck stolen ahead of time, because they had already put an alert out on the truck. And about that time, I think it was right when we was doing that report, they already had a hit that the truck was down in another county. So they had actually already, you know, had a jump on him without him getting away for a long time.
So you're saying the report for the stolen truck or the baby?
The report for the stolen truck had him pretty much caught before they found out,
right,
you know, it was him and the baby there. Yeah.
But in closing, again, it's just sad to see how somebody who has no tie to this baby would have shown this baby so much love. Shout out to the little dog, even alerting them that something more was wrong. Pets can do that sometimes, so it's definitely a good thing. Shout out to those people for being good people. There's definitely way more to this story. I want to know where the mom is, the biological mother of this child, why the child has the broken leg, and I'm pretty sure that there was some type of abuse going on. I'm not even sure that we want to speculate on what could be wrong, why he was naked with a baby running around and stealing cars. Don't know what this fool's mindset was, but this is a positive story. The baby survived. The baby's going to be okay. I just hope that the baby will end up in somebody's arms that will fully take care of her the way all children should be taken care of, so they can grow up and become something great. So her heads up for that baby. That man needs some help, and he never needs to be around any more kids. He needs some counseling. He needs some reform. And with him being on parole, whatever he's on parole for, need to figure out all of that stuff. Don't ever have that man around no more kids. But thank you guys so much for listening. It's somewhat of a positive story, but leave your comments in the comment section, okay? Thank you.